Welcome to the program. I'm Nicole Froelich. French President Emmanuel Macron has given a defiant television address after his prime minister said he would step down after losing a historic no-confidence vote. Macron said he would appoint a new premier within days following the resignation of Michel Barnier, but gave no hints as to who it might be. He blamed his opponents on the far right and the far left for the defeat, accusing them of choosing disorder rather than working together to pass a budget. Macron also reaffirmed that he had no intention of leaving office before his term ends in 2027. All right, a lot to unpack here. That's why we're talking to Lisa Louis in Paris. Now, Lisa, Macron explaining himself to the French people. What stood out to you in his address?
Well, you just said, he's going to announce a new prime minister within the coming days. Some people here were expecting him to do so possibly tonight, especially after he announced yesterday, after the vote of no confidence, that within 24 hours he'd find a new name. That's not going to happen now. What he also said, as he said, that he's not going to step down in 2027. That is kind of crucial until 2027. That is kind of crucial because the far right and the far left seem to be banking on that. They want to create a lot of chaos so that he calls snap presidential elections. He tonight said, no, that's not going to happen. Instead, he's going to find someone, he said, who can bring France back together, a prime minister that would talk to different sides, different political camps, so that they could find a compromise, try to learn how to find compromises in Parliament. He also said, this Saturday, Notre Dame Cathedral will be reopening after 5 years, and 5 years on only after it was partly destroyed by a fire. We could do that. We can also bring France back together and find a way forward. That were his words.
Talking about bringing people together, Barnier is known as a master negotiator. He negotiated Brexit, among other things, and still, he wasn't able to forge consensus. Now, is France becoming ungovernable in a way?
Well, it is ungovernable right now, but the question is, can it change that? France does not have a culture, a history of coalition governments. But Macron tonight said we need to change that. Basically, the French need to get a grip. There are different possibilities on the table. For example, it could be a socialist president, it could be a socialist prime minister, a prime minister from the Green Party or from a centrist party that would either cooperate with other more moderate parties directly, or that there would be some kind of no aggression pact between the Prime Minister's party and other parties that would actually support the government if certain red lines were not crossed. This is what France is aiming for, what President Emmanuel Macron is aiming for, wants for this country. Can it achieve it? We will see over the coming months.
Now, many people do blame this mess on the president. Can he fix it before he leaves office in 2027?
Well, this is what he said tonight. This is his aim, to bring the nation back together. And actually, he said it was kind of an advantage that he hadn't the chance to run again in 2027. He can't because it was a second term in office. So he said, I'm really focusing on, reconstructing a French compromise, French consensus. So he's aiming for that. He says it's dire times, it's tough times, there are international conflicts, there might be new wars on the horizon. We need to cooperate with Europe, and it is really therefore important that we find some consensus here in France in order to be able to work together with our partners on an international level.
Lisa Louis in Paris, thanks so much. Welcome to the day. We start tonight in France, where a political crisis is deepening after the resignation of Prime Minister Michel Barnier. France's shortest-serving premier lost a vote of no confidence in Parliament yesterday in a move supported by the left and the far right. It was the first time a French government had been voted down by Parliament in more than 60 years. That ramps up the pressure on President Emmanuel Macron, who is struggling to pass much-needed reforms aimed at addressing mounting economic concerns. Now addressing the nation today, Macron said he would appoint a successor to Barnier soon and that he himself would stay in office until the end of his mandate in 2027.
À partir d'aujourd'hui, c'est une époque nouvelle qui doit commencer.
From today, a new era must begin, where everyone must act for France and new compromises must be built. Because we must be ambitious for France, we cannot afford to remain inactive. In the coming days, I will appoint a Prime Minister. I will charge him with finding a government representing all political forces.
Let's keep talking about this with journalist Daniel Brown, who joins us from Paris. Daniel, President Macron says he wants to find a prime minister who represents all political forces. Is there anyone in France or on the planet right now who fits that bill?
Well, it's going to be a hard fit, Nicole, for that hot seat, given the uncompromising attitude displayed by President Macron in the speech, an excerpt of which you just showed. There was no hint of a cohabitation in the style of, say, Spain. And given the relentless series of defeats Macron has known since his decision to call elections in July, it would take a brave person to think that they could easily govern a minority government in a parliament with three hostile blocs. Analysts here believe it could be the veteran centrist François Bayrou or the conservative Sébastien Lecornu, who is currently the Minister of Defense. Analysts also think that it could be Lucie Castet. Now, she's part of the left wing of the Socialist Party and was the compromise proposition of the NFP coalition in September that Macron more or less rejected almost out of hand. But now he's starting to warm or give hints that maybe someone in that bloc can be detached. Castet is a former financial director at the Paris municipality, and today she said she's ready to assume that role. And this would respect the results of the July legislatives, where her coalition came first with a relative majority.
Those legislatives were a gamble Macron took. Today, he spoke to the people rejecting any kind of blame for the state France is in. Is he correct?
No, clearly not. It was his decision. It took everyone by surprise to dissolve the National Assembly and to call legislative elections in June. That took place a few weeks later. It was a total misunderstanding of the realities and dynamics of the country and its population. He continues to feel, that he's somehow above the melee, and he doesn't seem to be listening to the anger in the streets and the lassitude. He is very stubborn in his desire to go all the way through with his mandate till 2027. He repeated that this evening, 30 months to rally the population together. He evoked Notre Dame and the huge reconstruction of this cathedral in the center of Paris and the Paris Olympic spirit, as if this was the way that the country must be governed, in a kind of national rallying of the troops. But I think that given this rather smug and arrogant attitude, which seems to dog here and be consistent throughout his two mandates, it's going to be difficult for him to continue that position, I think.
And it's a long time until 2027, isn't it? Do you think he's going to survive that long?
Well, he is protected by the Constitution, and he came out fighting about this, calling any idea of resignation political fantasy. As I said, he refused to take responsibility for the no confidence motion that was voted through, the first time ever in the Fifth Republic that was created in 1958. He rewrote history in terms of how his responsibility for that. I think that he will be protected, as I say, by the Constitution. The streets do have a role. And today there was a national strike in the public sector touching education, health, transport. And, you know, there's genuine anger in the streets. And we've seen that the streets in the past in Paris have managed to push through, you know, the yellow vest movement, certain changes. But Macron seems to have ridden these tides of anger, and it doesn't seem like he's going to fall in the 30 months ahead.
One way or another, the far right, and Marine Le Pen especially, must be watching all of this and rubbing her hands.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the attention is centered on how she is a maker of kings and how it was thanks to her party's ability to well, go through with the no confidence motion. I don't like at all this idea, because it's not accurate, of the two parties, the coalition NFP party, which is a broad coalition, including the Ecology Party and the Socialist Party, as well as the genuine left-wing socialists led by Mélenchon. They are not on the same level. They are Republican, and contrary to the National Front, the RN party led by Marine Le Pen, which is a genuinely extreme right-wing party and quite anti-Republican in many ways. But she's, the center, the limelight. She was the first to be put on national television. And so it's quite clear that she's happy with how things are going.
That's journalist Daniel Brown in Paris. Thanks so much.